Good morning and welcome to Mrs. Spell's Sweet Treats and More. This is my YouTube channel. Today is Monday and this is Monday Moments. Today I'm going to be making banana bread and I can already smell it. I've already have some bananas put aside here. The recipe will call for all-purpose flour and it is of course included in the link below. The recipe, I'm making just the regular banana bread without nuts and raisins, not because I don't enjoy them, but there are people who may have food allergies, cannot eat nuts or have nuts around them. So I opted to just make the banana bread. And of course you can add raisins, craisins, or nuts, your choice. So I'm going to be working on my dry ingredients and I'm going to put all this together and get started. Okay, the first thing that I want to do is the recipe calls for all-purpose flour. And as I have in the past, I like to sift my flour from back in the day, and so I have to my flour I'm adding baking soda and salt. Okay, so I'm not using a sifter, which is what I've been used to, so I'm just going to use this strainer here, and I'm just getting the flour moving and to get the lumps out, you know. I made a treat the other day, and it is so important for me when I get my lumps out, whether it's confectioner's sugar or flour or regular sugar. You know, you don't want those lumpy clumps of flour, because flour really doesn't have a flavor. It's just there, you know. You don't want to bite into a delicious treat with a lump of white flour. So I'm getting down to the last of it, and it can be a little bit messy because flour is very light and it's moving everywhere. But I got it. And you can barely see, but there's some little spots on the bottom. So that's our flour, baking soda, and salt. Okay. And I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to be using a hand mixer, or I'm using my KitchenAid, and I'm going to take a stick of butter. I'm using salted. You can certainly use unsalted. And I'm just putting that in there. To the butter, I'm at the half a cup of butter, which is a whole stick. I am adding 3/4 of a cup of light brown sugar. And I already measured that, so I'm going to cream them together using my KitchenAid. Of course, those of you that have been following me, you know that I don't always use name brand. I use what's on sale. And having lived in different parts of the country, sometimes you can't find some of the name brands in some of the stores. So I'm creaming the brown sugar and the butter together. I'm going to pull this over so you can see a little bit more what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm just scraping the butter is room temperature. And then I'm scraping to make sure everybody, you know, our word is sharing. Banana bread was one of the first breads that I learned how to make well. Okay, I'm gonna Okay, to my butter and brown sugar, I am going to add 2 eggs, and before I add them, I am going to beat them a little bit. I don't want scrambled egg in there. I want everybody, the eggs of course are room temperature. I leave them out at least about an hour before I cook, so that the yolk and the whites and the yolk flow together very beautifully. They're not isolated and they share. So to this, to what I'm beating, I'm adding my eggs. And I'm going to scrape down because that's going to require scraping down, because the sugar and the butter have hung out together and they are sharing. But the eggs present another challenge because it's something added. In life, we can have a simple, let's say relationship or work. At work, you're working with one person, and you guys learn the vibe to work together. You don't call off because if you like each other, you want to make sure that the work is, no matter how difficult, you're willing to sacrifice because you've learned the one. But then here comes somebody. Sometimes the organization or the project requires you to bring somebody else in, and that kind of puts a spin on it. So that's like this egg and added to the brown sugar and the butter. They were fine, but then you add that other element, and oh my! Now everybody's got to go back in the pot and learn how to share, how to give of themselves. So one of the funniest and most interesting sharing things I want to that reminds me of this egg and brown sugar and butter is when my husband and I had our children. When it was just Lori, our oldest, and my husband and I, we had a rhythm. Lori was older, and so we didn't have to go through a lot of things. We just worked. We had been together and we worked together. But once you add even a little baby to that mix, it changes everything. So you have to learn how it fits together. So my butter and brown sugar and egg have to learn how to work together. So I'm mixing those together, making sure it's really incorporated. The mix master makes it sound like I'm really doing something here, but all the work is in the beater. Okay. I'm going to scrape this again. It's looking better, but I still have some on there. I want to make sure it's really in there because I'm not going to do any much more beating. So when a baby comes along or a new person comes along, it changes the feel of the main two. So we have to learn the sharing techniques and how to make it share. When there's two of you, one of you may be hot, one of you may be cold. When there's three of them, it feels like it's two ganging up, for lack of a better idea, I guess. So I'm going to do a last, sorry about that. And I'm going to add to my, now that is how it's supposed to look. I'm adding a teaspoonful of vanilla. You can use the clear, and since my bread is going to be brown, I went ahead and used the the regular. And I'm mixing it. And I'll help you take a look at it. And I'm going to set it aside for a little bit while I work on putting smashing my bananas. So this is what it's looking like. Looking mighty scrumptious. All right. So I'm going to set that aside. And now we're going to work on our bananas. Now I have 3 medium to large. I'm going to make the 4th one. I learned to peel the banana from the bottom. What I thought was the bottom was actually the top. What was up with that? But I'm taking my banana and I'm getting the some of the strings off of it. And I'm putting it here in the bowl. I buy, if my bananas are going at home, then what I do is I just go ahead and use them if they're brown. But if I purchase them and I can't find any brown ones, I go ahead and get a paper bag and just put them in a paper bag overnight, usually, and they'll start to turn brown. So I'm taking a potato masher and I'm just smashing my bananas. Oh, it smells so good. This is a simple recipe. I'm adding a little more banana because I really like bananas. I don't think you can overdo bananas, but I guess you can because of the potassium. So it doesn't take long, but you get it as small as you can. And I am going to continue smashing with my fork because it can be done with a fork or a masher. And I'm sure that someone has a invention out there that someone would purchase to do this, but I find it's just enjoyable doing it this way. Now, the recipe calls for about 2.5 cups of banana, and that should do about 2.5 cups. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add this to what I have here to help them mesh a little bit more inside of my butter goodness. I'm going to have my banana. Okay, and then I'm just going to mix it so that it's together. Now, some recipes call for cinnamon. You can certainly add, I guess, about a quarter or half a teaspoon of cinnamon. Sometimes, when I'm using cinnamon, cinnamon can overpower sometimes. When I want cookies, and I don't want cinnamon cookies, but I add cinnamon, sometimes the cinnamon can be a bit much. So my banana bread stands alone with the bananas. I don't want to make it into a competition between the cinnamon and the banana. But you may have found a better way, and if you enjoy cinnamon, it wouldn't be a problem. Okay? So I'm taking my mixture. And you can see it's looking like the middle of, well, looking like a lot of things. But I'm going to pour these together. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time beating it because I don't want the flour, I don't want to toughen it up. I want to make it smoothie. Okay, so I'm gonna stir and stir and stir, going to the bottom and stir and stir and stir. Everybody's trying to join in, I see. And making sure I get it off that bottom. I don't know if you make gravy, but when you make gravy, you want to make sure that the oil is hot before you add the flour, of course, and that the liquid is hot. If you put cold liquid in there on that flour, you're going to have a nice white clump of yuck. But at the bottom of a pan, if you've fried chicken or cooked meat, you will find little tiny bits of meat on the bottom of brown pieces. Oh, when those go in there with that into your gravy, you scrape that off the bottom of the pan with that oil and the flour, and get the flour nice and brown, and it's moving easily, not flowing like water, but moving easily, and scraping those bits. And then you add hot water or hot chicken stock. It just adds flavor. And then of course you add salt and pepper. Don't walk out of there on flour without salt and pepper. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I got everybody off the bottom. The oven is on 350, and I'm using a regular loaf pan that I buttered and floured. I like these glass bowls because you can actually look to see if there's flour or if everything is incorporated, and this looks really good. So here's my pre-made pan that I have buttered and floured, and pouring. Now I am going to use my spatula to get the rest of this. And then I'm taking it off of my spatula and my spoon. Oh, it looks so beautiful. Oh, to me. The recipe is rather simple. I started making this probably, be dating myself here, probably in the 90s. Okay. And I'm gonna make sure as best I can this is flat without disturbing my flour and butter. This cooks about an hour, a good 60 minutes. I've lowered the temperature sometimes depending on the oven, because I've used the electric oven and I've used the gas oven. So I'm patting it down, and this is what it looks like. We're gonna pop this in the oven, and I'll see you back after we take it out. Well, hello there. Here's our banana bread, and it is fresh out the oven. It makes about a full loaf in a 9x5 pan. I cooked it for about an hour. It starts smelling very, very banana-y, and for the last 10 minutes, I lowered the temperature to 325. That's because I want to make sure that the inside is done. You can take it out of the oven. You can eat it hot. You can eat it cooled, or you can eat it for breakfast. You can eat it for snack. It is a wonderful treat. The amount of sugar is reduced because of the added sugar is reduced because of the natural sugar in the banana. I use regular bananas. You can use them if you have some bananas around that are starting to brown just a little bit. Those are sweeter than the yellow ones. But you can certainly get yellow bananas and use the yellow bananas. What I do is I get my bananas. If my bananas are too yellow, if they're really fresh and that real clean yellow or green, I don't use those. I put them into a paper bag, and you can also put them into a cabinet just for a day or so, and that should get that ripening that you want. Together we can do this. This is a banana bread recipe that has been tried for many years. I've had it for many years. Excuse me, shared with me from friends in the South. I hope you enjoy it. I look forward to hearing from you. You have a great week, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.